Hey, what's going on? Good morning, everybody. I see a couple of people are here. I'll give a few minutes and we'll get started. Does anybody have any questions? Yo, what's up, Q?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
Good. Just crunch time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Good problems. Good problems to have, man. All right.
Long days again.
I know, but it's almost over, man.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So on today's agenda, what we're gonna have is we're gonna go over high rise. We're gonna go over pump test. We're gonna go undercarriage. Undercarriage. Sometimes you can kind of get into it when you're talking about pump test, which you typically get one or the other. We'll talk about that in a second. And then we're going to go over like a personnel. We're going to talk about personnel issues, right? So like problems in the locker room or getting somebody certified. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with high rise. High rise is something that, a lot of people are extremely intimidated when it comes to high rise because you have to give kind of a mini drill when you get into it, but they're not looking for you to know every little detail. And if you think about it, they have to interview 8 people every day. Each interview takes 45 minutes to an hour. They got to get through it, right? So they don't really have the time for you to kind of go through everything. Okay, so stand by for 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can pull up Mark's high rise. I know I had it in front of you guys last time, and I wasn't able to. We weren't able to go over it.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
I'm gonna go run on the treadmill unless I can stop.
Was that?
Oh shoot.
Abilities of an engineer for Los Angeles Fire Department.
Absolutely.
All right. Can you guys hear that? Somebody give me a thumbs up or just say yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear Mark talking in his video?
It doesn't show playing right now.
I appreciate your time. My name is Mark.
Yeah, you can hear it.
Okay. I'm gonna fast forward
to electric, one diesel. So anything under 100. Okay, thank you for stopping. This call comes out. I know we're ready for it.
Okay, so the way they're going to ask you this question is they're going to start with they're going to give you a downtown assignment. Okay, so things that we have to think about. Let's say 11s, 10s, 9s, somebody downtown, 27s, 37s, high-rise districts, right? They're going to ask for pre-incident, en route, on scene, and ongoing considerations. And these are typically, you're only going to have to do this one time because they don't want to hear you give your en route, on scene, all that stuff over and over again, right? So after the first time you do it,
you're usually pretty good. Like, you don't have to keep doing that part of it. The next fires you go to are going to be, hey, you're on scene, go from here, go from like laying in or whatever whatever the fire scenario is. So just be prepared for that. When they show you this building, it's typically going to be a modern high rise of some sort. And they're going to ask you, okay, you're on life force, let's just say life force 11. You're responding to 1100 Wilshire, which is let's just say a 30-story modern high rise, which is a picture that Mark has there on the left-hand side. And you're going to have to give your pre-incident, in route, on scene, and ongoing considerations. And before that, they want you to give a drill on all the water systems that you're gonna have or encounter in the city. Okay, and I'll stop this and play it, and we'll talk about it. But we'll go ahead and listen to Mark.
I likely know the building and I know which route I'm gonna take, but even still in the morning, I'm gonna come in, check with the front office, look at the journal, see what they did the day before, make relief, get all my relief equipment off the rig, get mine on, make sure I'm ready to respond. And I'm also going to do face-to-face and see if there's any equipment that got used or anything going on with our apparatus I need to be aware of. That way when the call comes out, ready to go, I'll put my turnouts on, disconnect my shoreline, turn on the battery so we can hear the radios, any information. All guys are getting suited up, ignition on, and I'm making sure all my guys are suited and buckled up, and then we're out of quarters on our way to the incident. While en route, I'm gonna have my members pull up hydrants for me, make sure I get at least 2, and just take note. Also, just time of day is gonna affect my route. It could be traffic or weather conditions. If it's middle of the night, it'd be a different route than during the day. So taking all that into account as I'm approaching. Also considering our neighboring companies, where they're coming from, how they might be spotting for this incident. So for this one in particular, is there a specific side you have me responding from, or? Okay, all right. So for this, we got fire in here.
I'm sorry, we're doing the high res.
Oh, so engine 210, you're in the light post. Right,
Engine 210.
I'm sorry.
The high res, right?
Yeah,
The high res.
for the high res. Okay, thank you. So, okay, so engine 210. So for our policy, the first ride in 200 series is in charge of getting water to the building. Given the height of this building, it's a high rise. It's going to be over 100 feet. And you say it's sealed? I'm sorry.
Modern high res.
So it's modern high-rise. So, City of LA, we have our water systems split into 3 main categories. So I'll start with the earliest one, and I'll work my way up to this building. So we have pre-1960, and that's pre-1960. They were limited to 150 feet, except for 2 buildings in the city. The basic rule for that is 3 wet, 4 dry. So anything above 3 stories is going to have a class 2 wet system. Anything above 4 stories is going to have a class 1 dry standpipes. With those outside, we're going to see 2 inlets for anything up to 4 stories. Anything more than that, we're going to see 4 inlets. Those are going to have 500 GPM per riser, and you're generally going to the thing with those is the dry standpipes. We're gonna have to pump into those. The wets will be fed off of the city water supply, or sometimes a water tank on the roof. Moving ahead to 1960 to 1974, the city lifted the limit on building heights. So anything that's where we're going to find our combination system. So anything under 150 feet is still going to be 3 wet, 4 dry. Anything over 150 feet is going to be a combination system. This is where we're going to find our the drip cocks. Those are going to be above the 5th floor and above. And that'll be a 2.5-inch outlet. This is also where we start to find the orifice plates that can be soldered on those. We need to make sure we remove those. The important part of this is if it's below 150 feet, we know that it still needs water from us. Um,
I
Moving
forgot
on
to mention, this is 22 stores.
okay. So, then post 1974, the same things apply, but they split it up into another category. So under 75 feet is gonna be 3 wet, 4 dry, 75 to 150. Is gonna be what we call manual combined, or a damp system. So it'll have sprinklers, but the water supply for those is only enough to supply the sprinklers, not the standpipe and the sprinklers. Above 150 feet is gonna be a combined system. The same riser feeds both the sprinklers and the standpipe outlets. For 60 to 74 and 74 and beyond, you're gonna have 1,000 GPM per riser, and for 2 risers, you're gonna have 4 inlets. For 3 risers and more, you're gonna have 6 inlets. Let's see what else. If it's over 250 feet in a modern high rise, you're gonna have 3 fire pumps, 2 electric, 1 diesel. There'll also be jockey pumps to take up the minor fluctuations in the water pressure throughout the normal operation of it. So with that in mind, this type of building is a modern high rise. It's over 150 feet. So it's going to be a combined system, and there's 6 inlets. So I know that it's got at least 3 risers in it. As I'm pulling up, I'm going to spot to the inlets, because that's gonna be my responsibility. I know there's gonna be a hydrant within 100 feet. So I need to make sure I secure my water source there. And the first thing I'm gonna do once the crew gets off is secure that water supply. And then I want to go check the inlets. I'll take my spanner with me and make sure all the copper valves are in working order. Then I'm going to connect with our high-rise hose, 2.5 inch, to the inlets. We talk about bottom up and inside out, but really I'm just going to connect to the ones that are closest to me and allow for incoming companies, whichever direction that may be. So they have easy access as well. Once I've connected to those, I'm going to load them. I also, I've already spotted my apparatus panel away from the building, and I want to take note of whatever the system pressure is. I should be able to find it either on the inlets. I can talk to the building manager, or if the fire pumps are nearby, it'll be on there too. Otherwise, I can estimate it. Building height, 150 feet plus 150 PSI plus 5 PSI per floor. And that'll give you estimated system pressure. And I want to make sure that start off pumping 100 below that, because I don't want to take over for the system if the pumps are all working. So once I've got this set up, I want to make sure I have good lighting, get my wheel chocks out, make sure I protect the panel so I can set it from falling glass or debris, so I can use salvage covers, ladders, different things to create a structure around the panel. Also want to make sure, hugely important, to duplicate my leg. I can do that. Ideally, do that off a different hydrant, so you have a different water supply if you need it. And also want to cover my high-rise hose, make sure that that's safe from falling glass or things that could damage that supply. Big thing to watch is make sure I'm watching my gauges. I can mark them, and I want to look for if I see a drop in pressure, because when static pressure, and if we've taken over the system, then I want to see a drop in pressure right away. Like that means we're now pumping, and if that happens, I have to let IC know that we're now taking over, and I want to make sure I get the appropriate water pressure to our valves. Moving on, listening to the radio. I've got my panel radio on so I can hear the TAC channel. I also want to keep an eye out, or keep an ear out for any emergency traffic, things that affect the incident. And as the incident starts winding down, I can start getting ready for rehab mode for all of our crews. So get more bottles out if it's going to be an extended operation, get water out, get ready for decon so I can set up a 1-inch line and some trash bags. and be ready to hose guys off, and we'll dump their clothes right into the trash bag so it doesn't contaminate the inside of our rig. After that, I expect to do a hot wash after action review with everyone on scene. At that point, we can talk about everything that we did right, everything we did wrong. We'll start with myself, there's always ways to improve. So lessons learned, and then beyond that, when we get back to the station, the next coming shifts, we can draw it up on the board, and people that either weren't on scene or after we had a chance to discuss further, we can get in a more of a classroom setting to learn from the incident.
Okay. What you guys think about that? Anybody?
I just wasn't sure if we were gonna go over the full all the errors or if we were just gonna answer the question.
Yeah. So, sorry, Q, you were kind of cut out, but you were talking about you weren't sure if it was going to give you all the errors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you got to give like a mini drill, and this was Mark's first time going through it. Mark, he actually speaks really well, but you can tell on this one that he was really shaky, right? Like he was kind of like he was nervous. You guys can't see, but on the other side of the camera, the whole task force is sitting there with I want to say Chief Everett or some other chief. So there's a lot of pressure on him, and he's trying to ramble off this stuff. And this is probably the most intimidating part, or the most intimidating question in the whole thing, right? Because you got to kind of like, how often do we go to high-rise fires where we're the engineer pumping into the inlet? So we're not really speaking from too much experience. The best thing we can do is drill and give as much information as we can, right? Follow all the policies and procedures. So we'll kind of go back through it. And if you guys have any questions at any time, make sure that you ask, because chances are somebody else has the same question. I always get a lot of emails and text messages and IG messages after we do stuff like this. So just ask it here so everyone else knows. So he talked about his pre-incident. When you get into your pre-incident for something like this, well, let's go all the way back. Let's talk about the drill. So the way he broke it down was basically like book 100 breaks it down. He talked about pre-60. When it comes to pre-60, we got 3 wet, 4 dry. This is where we're going to have class 1s, class 2s. Class 1s are going to be for the fire department, rated at 500 GPM. Buildings limited to 150 feet. Class 2s are for domestic supply for the occupants, right? So he covered that. These are also where you're going to have your Dorothy Mays. So anything over 3 stories, R1 occupancies, you're going to find Dorothy Mays. You don't have to get into details about Dorothy May. You don't have to get into details about, any of the pressures to the class 2s, nothing like that. Okay, so forget about that. This is just a really general overview. So then he gets into 60 to 74. Okay, after 74, this is when the 150 feet restriction was lifted. Now buildings are over 150 feet. You're going to find 60 to 74 a combination system where the class 1s and class 2s are coming off the same riser. You're going to be or your class 1s, class 2 stem risers, and you're going to be 1,000 GPM per riser. And then we're going to have a pump. Okay, we're going to have either diesel or electric. So you start rattling off like that. You're going to have PRVs and stuff like that. You don't have to get into all the details, but as long as you mention PRVs, orifice plates, you're good. Then you move on to 74 to present. 74 to present, this is where we're going to have a few different systems. So in 64 to 74 to present, anything below 150 feet was going to be the pre-60 guidelines. Now in the combined system, which is 74 to present, we're calling high rise at 75 feet. So anything under 75 feet is going to fall back to the pre-60 stuff. Anything over between 75 and 150, you're going to have the dance system. I think he called it a manual combined system. And then above, we can go above 150 feet, where we have the Hallelujah package, right? We got 3 pumps, 1 electric, 2 diesel, fully sprinkler, 3 risers, 6 inlets. You talk about all that stuff. You don't have to get into the detail, right? You don't have to talk about the pressures of the pressure regulating devices. You don't have to talk about that. have them in your back pocket and have studied on all that stuff. But this is just a really quick general breakdown of the stuff you're going to encounter, right? So when they show you this building, it's going to be over 150 feet, right? I think in this video we said we're a engine 210 or Light Force 210, and it's a 22-story high rise or whatever. So what are you going to do? So he talks about his pre-incident considerations. This will be a good time for you guys to say, you know, I'm very comfortable in buildings like this. I've responded to many different medical emergencies in buildings like this. I've drilled extensively on it. We've talked about it. And, you know, this is what we're going to do pre-incident. We're going to make sure we have a solid high-rise hose lays. You know, all that stuff comes into play here. So then he talked about once you get the alarm. When you get the alarm, I'm listening to, you know, where the address is. I'm familiar with the building. I'm looking at my NVT as I'm getting suited up. I'm making sure everybody else is getting suited up. Make sure everybody puts their seatbelts on. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to go to the map. This is a good opportunity for you to say that I don't need to go to the map because I know that my responsibility as a driver is to know my first in district, and I'm going to spend time every day studying my map. So I know the most efficient route to take here. Knowing the most efficient route, I can anticipate where other companies on the ticket are going to be responding from. So I can look for them at certain intersections and stuff like that. When you leave the station, you're going to, you know, put the rig in drive, clear the apron, look back, make sure you have station security. And then you're going to talk it up on the rig. Like he was saying, the hydrant member is going to get two hydrants. We're also going to utilize the map. We're going to talk to Cap, make sure we're all on the same comms plan. Make sure Cap's on, or the radios are on 9 for reporting to structure fire. Then what is our TAC? Our TAC is going to be 12 or whatever. And then coming into the incident. Now, we always want to lay hydrant to fire, okay? But when you're speaking practically, mention that. So typically in the LAFD, we want to lay hydrant to fire. But I know in this particular situation, what we're going to do as a Light Force is we're going to have 6 members. So we can stay in the NFPA 2 in, 2 out. I know that there's going to be a hydrant somewhere very, very close to where I need to spot my rig at the inlets as a first 200 series pump engineer. What this also does is it frees up the hydrant member. The hydrant member is able to go fire attack because Light Force first on scene, we're going to be fire attack. So the captain's going to stay on the rig as IC. So captain stays on the rig, the pump engineer stays down, and now we have essentially what would have been our hydrant member, the inside, AO, top, and tiller are going to go up and conduct fire attack, right? So now everything's covered. He talked about spotting panel away, getting your supply from that hydrant that's going to be within 100 feet of your inlets, and then utilizing your four-way. Utilizing your four-way is huge because that allows the next in either engine or 200 series to come in and pump in series, right? So you guys can split that lay. So make sure you talk about the four-way, which I'm pretty sure he did. I got to go back and watch it. He talked about some other things that he missed are what you can expect. I would expect as a pump engineer, I'm not necessarily by the front door. I'm at the inlets. So everyone's going to have to come to me. I have to make sure that my high-rise hose packs are going off with the crew and they don't forget the pigtail and they take the rotary saw or Hayward or whatever it is they're taking up there. I'm going to facilitate getting that stuff off of my apparatus as the priority, right? Next thing I want to do is get my supply. Now that I have my supply, remember, they're going to tell you that you're at 10s, 11s, 27s, 37s, somewhere where you have the high-rise hose that you're going to plug into your inlet, which Mark did a really good job and he mentioned, right? Because that hose can handle higher pressure than just your ordinary 2.5. He said he was going to take his spanner over to the inlets. Don't forget a screwdriver because you're going to pop those caps. You're going to take a look inside all your inlets, make sure there's no trash, debris, make sure all the clappers work. If the clappers don't work, you're going to utilize a 2.5-inch shutoff, plug it in. So now you have control of that particular inlet, right? One thing that you can that kind of gets missed is because we're not, like, if you picture yourself at this incident, if the fire pumps are running, you're going to hear it. These fire pumps are so big, they're very loud, and it's very obvious that if they're running. So if they're running, you know that you have to stay 100 pounds below system pressure, and then you know that at some point, whoever gets lobby is going to confirm with IC that the pumps are running, right? So we're going to stay below. Very important. So if you throw those audible terms in there, I think that they're going to understand that you recognize what's going on. And it's just another way for us to back up all of this knowledge that we have on board, right? So then once everybody goes up, you're going to take note of whatever you're supposed to pump, right? So let's just say And when they show you this building, be prepared to do hydraulics, right? So for this, 150 plus head, which is, I think it was a 22-story high rise, so 100, what is that, 104 pounds. Do a quick little calculation, right? So you have that, stay 100 pounds below that. So if it does come up and they ask you, hey, this is what I'm going to pump, I'm going to make sure I monitor, my gauges. One of my 2.5 is going to be hooked up to my foam discharge, so I can see what I'm flowing, right? A lot of times when people I'm talking to are visualizing themselves, they start to do this, right? And you're talking your way through it, because panel away, we know that all of our outlets are twists, right? They're no more pull handles. So I can kind of get inside your mind and see that you've been so well versed that you're kind of going through all the correct motions. So they're just little things that really add up at the end. Then you talk about the hose line. Like, I know that once I'm staying below, if I do have to take over, I'm going to take over, let IC know, which Mark did a great job saying. We're going to get another engine in there to split the lay. We're going to cover our inlet hoses with salvage covers, ladders, whatever it is. We're going to make a lean-to awning to protect us for any kind of debris or falling glass. The fire company is going to go in there. They're going to put 200 feet on the ground, and they're going to work their way down the hall and extinguish this fire. I anticipate this fire being knocked down. So those are the words that you have to say. I anticipate this fire being knocked down. When the fire is knocked down, we're going to go into a rehab phase. When we start to rehab our members, I'm going to make sure that we have waters down low. I know that they're going to be there's going to be rehab set up in staging. So now you're talking about the overall incident at a high rise. You're starting to mention staging. You're mentioning lobby. You're mentioning IC. You're going much more outside of just your job as an engineer, right? And it just shows your overall firefighter skills, right? Your knowledge. So these are good things to mention. And then when it's knocked down, you're going to get into your decon procedures. Make sure everybody has hero wipes, have a 1-inch line so you can wet down everyone's turnouts, bag and tag them, get back to the station, make sure all your fluids are topped off. Everything Mark said was what you're going to do after. There's no more journal for us to document, but a lot of places still have, maybe just the engineers keep a journal, or they keep a grease board where they can write down notes of how much hose was used, how many hours they pumped. This is a huge, significant incident. So these are things you want to say. This is going to have a global impact as far as the fire service is concerned, right? This is going to be on the news. So you're going to want to make sure that when you get back to the station, you're going to want to put this up on the in the TV room. You're going to want to either put it on the 957 so you guys can go back over it, and you're going to talk about things that you could have done better, things that actually happened, things that you wish would have happened. Go through everything. And like he said, he showed a lot of humility. I'm going to raise my hand and talk about the things that I messed up. Never been a fire where everything has gone perfect, So don't be afraid to admit your mistakes. Put yourself out there and work on things that are ways that you're going to get better. Okay. So the high rise, it's intimidating to some people, but does it matter if let's talk about the technical stuff. Does it matter if it's 100? If it's 22 stories or 30 stories as an engineer? No, right? There's a fire pump. We're going to handle it the same. The scenario is going to be the same. There's a fire pump. We're going to stay 100 pounds below. Now, if we're engine 6 and we're first on scene, nobody else is on scene, are we supposed to go up if there's fire pumps? Yeah, we're supposed to go up, right? 2 in, 2 out. We put a breather on our back and we go up. But you can also guide this scenario to wherever you want it to be, right? So let's just say they said, hey, you're engine 6, you're first on scene. What's the operation here? Well, I know per NFPA, 2 in, 2 out, I'm going to have to put a breather on. We're going to get all of our high-rise hose packs. We're going to go up. But typically, from my experience, our companies are so fast that we're all on top of each other. So it's usually not just engine 6. If I have any other companies on scene, like Light Force 11, Light Force 29, Task Force 29, whoever it is, I know that everything is going to be covered. The 2 in, 2 out is going to be covered. This gives me the opportunity to supply the your inlets. And why are we there? Because everything we do is to duplicate, right? We're a safety system. So in case those pumps fail, now we're in place to take over the system. So we are a very important part of this whole operation. So if you speak from practical experience like that, like, hey, this is how it's supposed to happen, this is how it might actually happen, that's nothing but a bonus for you. So don't be afraid to talk about things like that. Okay, talk about your experiences and your drills and all of that type of stuff, and you guide this to where you want it to go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. This is nothing to be afraid of, and you guys talk to your engineers about it, see what they think. But it's crunch time. Next week we start 3 holes. This is a very good that performance that Mark gave, I think, was pretty good, especially for his first time, as nervous as he was. Does anybody have any questions for the high rise?
At any time for high rise, we're going to go over base, or is it just the second triple or 200 series engine arriving on scene?
So you can go over base, but if you're going to go over that, now you're talking about the overall incident, right? We're going to go over Al's base. Okay, so a fire attack, lobby, staging, base. Base can be from anybody, from any engineer, from your first alarm. And what we're going to do is 200 feet away, we're going to park at a diagonal angle. We're going to take inventory of who's in corner, or who is actually in base. So if you're going to go there, you got to be prepared to go all the way, right? So I didn't mention it when I was doing my engineer 3-hole, and I don't think they're going to be too much of a stickler on that. But if you want to bring it up, go ahead. So a lot of times you can open yourself up for these unwanted questions, right? So like we talked about our last session, like emergency repair, and then hey, we're going to have to get a tow. Well, nobody asked about tow, but since I brought it up, let's see what I got, right? Especially if you're someone who's not you're kind of shaky, you don't really have the experience, like you're like, hey, my engineer told me to say this. I wouldn't recommend opening yourself up for anything that you can get picked apart on. All right, anybody? Carly, Austin, Jesse, before we move on.
Just a question as far as the 4-way. You talked about the 4-way and utilizing that. I was hearing possibly avoiding utilizing the 4-way just because you're pumping higher pressures through that. If you're splitting the pressure with the pump, what are your thoughts as far as that situation? I know, like this specific scenario, right? You're by yourself, so you don't have another engine right off the bat.
Okay, good. So that would be a scenario for a task force. If the task force showed up on scene, perfect. We don't need a 4-way, right? But if you're a light force and you're just by yourself, you put that thing on there. Now whoever comes in next can give you half the pressure right away. There's no interruption in water. Or I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, practically speaking, they can hook up to the other inlet and kind of correct that. But for this answer, I think that utilizing the 4-way is probably the best. It doesn't hurt you unless you can articulate your way out of it, right? So hey, you and I are gonna be working together, but I would just stay away from it. Just say, hey, I'm gonna put it on there just so somebody else could come in, pump the pressure uninterrupted, and you're good to go. If you have the practical knowledge, like I know you do, oddly, because you've actually been to these fires and you work with Dean, who's been pumped to multiple high-rise fires, then bring that experience to here. It's only gonna help you. There's so many ways of doing this stuff, right? And I don't think any of them are wrong, as long as you just communicate why you're doing what you're doing. You make this interview go whichever way you want it to go.
Roger. Thank you.
All right. Cool. Anybody else? Cool. One other thing too, if you want to get into details, like typically if you're on the pump, I used to roll around in volume because the pump, I'm ready for big water at all times, right? This is something where we're not concerned about really big water. We're actually concerned about pressure. So don't forget, hey, this is going to be a pressure layer. Both rigs are going to be in pressure. And that's just one more little detail that makes you look like a shining star, okay? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to pump test. Now, let me see if I'm going to share my screen with you. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but did you guys know that there's an actual pump test breakdown on Target Solutions? Have you guys seen that?
Yes, the video.
Okay, cool.
Brennan put out.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna kind of go through it, and it might not necessarily be for you, but I didn't know this was on there, to be honest with you. So I guarantee that not everybody that is going to their 3-hole knows that either, right? So we're gonna watch it really quick. I asked Scott to come on here and talk to you guys, but he's like, "Hey, that's why I did the video, man. Have him watch the video." But let's talk about some practical stuff before we actually watch what he does. Your question is either going to be, tell us about pump tests and all the things that go into it, or walk me through your undercarriage operation. They're usually 2 separate questions, okay? Sometimes when you're talking about pump tests, it's a better question for the raters because you can incorporate your undercarriage into it, right? But they're 2 separate things. The thing about pump tests is they don't actually want to know what the pump test engineer is doing, because the test pit engineer, that's his job. Your job is to make sure your rig is high and tight getting into pump test, right? So things to talk about. Pump test doesn't start, it starts a long time before you actually get there, right? We all know that the schedule comes out in December. We know that you're not going to know exactly what date you're going to be going down to pump test. All of your undercarriage are based off of pump test, right? So every 4 months, we're going to make sure that our undercarriage are due. Every piece of maintenance, everything we do all year long, it builds up to pump test to make sure that we pass and make sure our apparatus is high and tight, right? So this is something that you're going to coordinate with your reliefs. They may give you a scenario like, hey, you're engine 6 and your pump test. Okay, well, being that you're at a triple, one extra step we got to consider is the day of pump test. What do we need? We need a move up company, right? So that's going to be projected by in coordination with the captain, months in advance. So on the master calendar, everybody's going to know what pump test is. The 957 is going to reflect it. We're going to make phone calls to the company that's going to be moving up for us and let them know what time we need them there, and everything's going to be communicated, right? Whereas if you're at a task force, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, it's still going to be projected, but we got a light force there to cover and pick up the slack while the engine goes down to pump test or the 200, whatever it is, right? So that is more speaking towards your overall knowledge and your manipulation of personnel. So that would be huge, right? So pump test starts early on. We're going to make sure that our ladders are high and tight coming into it. We're going to make sure all of our undercarriages are done. The reason why we do undercarriage is so we can identify any problems that may be going on or maybe developing with the apparatus. But more so, it's clean so the mechanics can inspect any issues, right? So we're going to make sure that the day of pump test, we're going to get there early, get suited up, get all of our face piece breathers all bagged for people who aren't actually working so they can go to rescue maintenance. We're going to put them in the bag. We're going to go look at the journal to see if any of the equipment log needs to go down. We're going to talk to the other drivers to see if they need anything while we're down at the shops. And then we're going to call the test pit engineer the day before and make sure that he's going to be ready for us. Yeah, bring it on down. When you get there, that's kind of like when the video starts, okay? So we'll go ahead and watch the video. I'm going to fast forward through a bunch of stuff because a lot of it's just, I think we have a pretty good understanding. Hopefully you guys have either taken a rig down to pump test or you went down and you kind of sat with the test pit engineer and you kind of walked through what needs to be done, okay?
Preparation for pump test begins a few weeks from the day it is scheduled. You can begin with ladder maintenance by sanding and touching up any...
Okay, so basically he talks about pump test starts a few weeks. I don't think it does. I think it starts all year long. He's just making sure you touch up your ladders before you go down there, right? Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Okay, so your ladders, this is when you're pulling in. When you're pulling in, you meet with the pump test engineer. You see to the left here, they got a little stand that's on these casters that has all your ladders. You put your ladders on there. You send them over to the carpenter shop. The carpenter, you leave him there. He might be working on something, but you talk to Raul. Hey, my ladders are right here. He's gonna check them out. He'll inspect them on the 976. Good to go. So you got to know where to put your ladders. There's also this little dolly right here where you're gonna put all your breathers. Now, if you're going to pump test anytime soon, I don't think they're checking out our old breathers because we're getting the new ones into play. But we're going to pile it all on here. That's going to go all the way down the hall over to rescue maintenance. Rescue maintenance is going to check all the breathers. They're going to check all the face pieces that we brought, and that's how that's going to go. As soon as we pull in, we're going to be directed by the test pit engineer. He's either going to send us to the PM stall, or he's going to send us to tell us to back into do the actual pump test. But either way, what you don't want to happen is you don't take all your stuff off, and now you're supposed to get your breathers checked by rescue maintenance, and the mechanics put it up on a lift, and now you can't even get to them because you've never done this before. You forgot to take the appropriate stuff off, right? Or you have all the equipment that needs to go in the cage is all on the apparatus still. So make sure you take all your equipment off as soon as you get there, and then be guided by the pump test engineer where you're supposed to go. It's the first person there, it's pretty good to go over to the PM stalls because they can fix any issues that may be going on before you actually get your pump test, right? So very important that you get to work early that day because the pump test engineer is ready to go at 6:30, right? The earlier you get in there, the earlier you get out, the faster you get your apparatus back serving the community, you get water back in your district, okay? Or you get the move-up company going back to their district. So that's how it goes when you first
upon arrival to the shops.
You guys can watch this on your own. He gives you a really good breakdown of what you're supposed to be doing in detail, but we don't need to know this detail.
Fasteners, cracks.
Okay, so this is why the mechanic needs us to do our undercarriage, because they're checking all of this stuff, and if it's nice and clean, they can identify any issues, right? It's also a pride thing. There's a lot of pride that goes into pump test and your undercarriage. Now, we don't necessarily strictly do it for pride, but if the mechanics if you get this thing up on a lift and the mechanics see a dirty rig or not a very good undercarriage, if you don't care about this apparatus, why should they? They'll get to your problems or your issues when they can. They're not going to fix it right now. Now, if you have everything high and tight, you went the extra mile, you wiped down every crevice you possibly could because you have a lot of pride in your apparatus, they're going to go, you know what? Let me see if I can get you that extra piece, or let me see if I can fix this issue for you since I got you here up on the lift and since you care so much, right? So a lot of pride goes into this stuff, okay? So this is a good time for you to sit with the mechanic and kind of ask him what he's doing. What are these parts? I know the logbook says certain things, but what am I actually looking at here? I don't consider myself any kind of mechanic or any kind of person that really knows what's going on under these rigs. So I need to be reminded constantly, right? So, hey, what are you looking at? What are some common problems that you're seeing? How can I avoid them? These are all good things for you to bring up in your interview. Knowing some of the names of the mechanic, knowing the name of the test pit engineer is huge.
Yellow line, this I'm going to submit. A big thing is your front and rear main. Go underneath.
Okay, so after your PMs are done, they're going to do filters, all of that stuff. Then you're going to go get your actual pump test. Now, Scott here is talking about exactly his operation, what he does and why he's doing it. You don't have to get into the detail of what he's doing. You can talk about the dry vacuum test. You can talk about, cleaning out your intakes and dropping off your hard suctions, 10% efficiency. You can watch this video and talk about small things that are on there, but they're not looking for you to give an entire drill on what he's doing. Okay, so don't get that confused. Now, if this kind of segues into like your undercarriage process, you gotta be ready to answer that, right? And you will be, because you know that you're either going to get an annual pump test or an undercarriage. So we'll talk about the undercarriage after we talk about pump test here.
Sure, everything's still intact. Covering the discharge gates with
the fast forward. Okay. These are some things you can mention. There's going to be 100% maximum capacity, 10% overload, 70% capacity, 50% capacity. Those are like the gist of what's going on here. And if you just mention those, I think you're fine. I think they'll leave you alone. You don't have to talk about all the So after you pass your pump test, it's going to give you your little paper. Okay, that's pretty much it. He's gonna go in the office and give you your little paper that you're going to take in your logbook. So it's really important that you state on there, hey, I'm gonna take my logbooks with me so they can take a look at any issues that are going on, anything that needs to be repaired, and stuff like that. Right after you're done, you're gonna get back to the station, go back in service, talk to your captain, make sure your reliefs know. Anytime we do anything from high-rise fire, you want to share that information with your reliefs. You go to pump test, share information with your reliefs, and then share it with the crew so everybody knows what's going on or what's been happening with the apparatus. So just be prepared for that. Now, if they get into undercarriage, hey, what's your undercarriage process? Okay, undercarriage, same thing, right? If you're at a triple, you're going to need a move-up company. It's going to be scheduled. It's going to be projected. A lot of places have the luxury, like Q, you're at 94s, where you have the pit in the back, and it's not really a big deal because you're at a task force. You just tilt that thing. But imagine you're at 6s, where, yeah, they have a pit in the back, but 6s is pretty busy. So you can't keep tilting this thing and, getting runs in between. It doesn't work that way, right? You want to make sure that you got a move-up company in place. You're going to coordinate through cap, all the stuff we talked about. You're going to identify where you're going to do it, right? We don't pull the apparatus on the side yard anymore. We don't crawl underneath it and start spraying hose, getting all of that runoff all over the parking lot, right? The reason we have these clarifiers at certain locations are so we can utilize them. Okay. We also have bus yards that we're able to go to. Okay. So when you utilize somebody's, let's just say they say, hey, you're at 68 and you got pump test. Okay, cool. Well, I know 94s is where I like to do my pump test because yada, yada, yada. I'm going to call down there and make sure that it's still available. Or you like to go to the bus yard in 66s on Van Ness and you have a relationship with so-and-so. So you're going to call him and make sure it's available and yada, 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 right? So however you do it is totally fine. Just understand that you're either going to have to put it up on a lift at the bus yard or go to someone's clarifier. Doesn't matter. I personally like going to the bus yard, but there's a couple rules that go into it according to a training bulletin 127, right? We got to have our high visibility vests on at all times. The speed limit is 8 miles an hour. You want to check in with the staff to let them know you're there. And then you got to know how to utilize the lifts, right? The lifts, you put them up, make sure you have a spotter, and then they have locks. Make sure that you're on the locks, right? So when you throw these small little details in there, it shows that you've actually been there before. Okay. The good thing about going to like a battalion house is the chief is there. So if you go to a clarifier that where a battalion may be stopping by, the chief is there. So if you're able to clean it, lube it, hey chief, you want to come check it out? More so, even better. But typically, if you're going to someone else's clarifier or to a lift, you want to get it all clean there. Once it's all clean, you take it back to the station. Now everybody has all hands on deck. Now we got some music playing. We got the gojo. We're cleaning stuff up, and as we're doing that, it makes it a fun learning environment, right? You got to make sure you say these things. We're gonna build camaraderie. We're gonna work on certification. We're gonna talk about identifying parts. We're gonna talk about a lot of things that we're gonna make it a training by doing this undercarriage, right? So now your firefighters know how to do undercarriage if you need to go to EMT or whatever the scenario is. So you got to make sure you say stuff like that. After you get it all clean, this is where we're going to lube it, right? We got to make sure that we have the Chevron lube set at 60 pounds with the compressor so we don't overpressurize our boots. We're going to make sure that we wipe those zerks before we put some fresh lube in there. And we're going to use our logbook to make sure that we don't miss any of our lubricating zerks, right? So after we get everything wiped down, now we're going to get the paperwork ready for battalion. When battalion comes down, he's going to know early in the morning because you're going to notify him that you have undercarriage that day. Anytime you take a battalion resource out of play, they need to be notified, right? Because they're responsible for all the apparatus in their command, right? So we don't just go and like, oh yeah, we'll let the chief know when we're done. No. Let them know in the morning, and when you get back, they're going to come check it out. They're going to sign the 978B, right? So we're going to do the 978A checklist, 978B, so they can sign it. We're going to have some creepers, white towels, lights, inspection mirrors ready for them so they can go under it. And don't just think that they're going to come and say, "Oh man, good job, cool." Like, be prepared. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you, hey, what is this thing? What is this recirculating line? What are some issues going on with it? So you got to have a pretty good knowledge of what's going on. Be current with your apparatus so you can talk to the chief about it. Oh, you guys, your brakes are low and they haven't come out. Chief's going to make a phone call down to the shop and have some things addressed for you, right? So their phone call comes with a little bit more weight than ours. So just know that you have to have some knowledge of what's going on with your apparatus. And then, you're going to go back in service, document it, share notes with your relief, and the cycle just continues. Okay, so that's pretty much how the undercarriage goes. You have to know. Don't be afraid of it. I would just make a phone call, go down there, sit with the pump test engineer, watch this video. I wish I had this video when I was going through it. I actually went down there a couple times and just stood around. A lot of times they send you like on errands, they have you do stuff where you're at the shops, but just try to make the best out of it and build those relationships with people that work at the shops, because we work together, we work for each other. There's going to be some things you're going to need as a newly promoted engineer. So start developing those relationships now. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about undercarriage? Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on to certifying a member. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen with you again. And this time, Engineer Mulligan is going to talk to you about getting somebody certified. Can you guys all see this?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna play it right now.
Okay, so your first question, engineer candidate Mulligan, is going to
Can you guys hear?
Your assignment as an engineer of fire.
It's a little low, but we could hear.
Your
Okay.
captain has instructed you to develop a certification program for your crew.
I think Mulligan's a little bit louder, but he's basically saying that your captain has instructed you to come up with a certification program for certifying your members.
The screen swapped over to you.
How about now?
No, the video's not playing. The screen's pointing towards you right now. You're not screen sharing.
Can you see him?
No.
Oh man, give me 1 sec. Okay, let's try this again. Oops.
Okay.
There it goes.
So your first question,
All right.
captain has instructed you to develop a certification program for your crew and certify your firefighters to be acting engineer. Tell us how you will prepare and organize this program.
Okay, well, first off, I want to say that as an engineer, training is extremely important to me, and not only that, it's one of the duties and responsibilities of the position of engineer. It's something I take very seriously. Another thing I want to talk about is that qualified relief is not only a requirement for our department, but it's something as an engineer that I need. It's something that will put me at ease if I ever need to go home for an emergency or anything. I have somebody that's qualified to be able to get in that seat and take care of the citizens in my district and in my stead. With that being said, the first thing I'm going to do with any member when coming up with a plan is I'm going to plan it out with both my captain and that member. I'm going to meet with my captain one. We're going to set up a timeline that works for him, and I'm going to talk to that member and see what timeline works for them and how, and I'm going to explain how I'm going to go about doing this. This is something that I have done before, and I use a simple 3-step method for every teaching lesson that I do, which is going to be tell, show, do. It's something that I did when I was a high school coach. It's something I've done as a paramedic preceptor, and that I'm currently doing assisting my engineers in training and certifying younger members. Now, once we come up with our timeline, we're going to open a task book. That's going to be the department's task book. That's a great tool and something to keep us organized and to keep us moving forward to getting them that eventual certification. Not only that, but I'm going to set small attainable goals for that member. We're going to start with simple things like non-emergency driving, pump theory, and we're going to work our way up to more practical drills and actual pumping out in the field. I'm going to talk with that member and his relief, or his or her relief, sorry, to see if we can adjust days, maybe fireside days, in order to make sure that we can get this done in this timeline. For my 3-step method, for any of these lessons, I'm going to tell them how I want to do it, I'm going to show them how I want them to do it, and then I'm going to have them both tell and show me back how it's done. And then once we set these goals and we get through these different lessons, we're going to have small rewarding things like going out as a crew and getting mochas, things like that that we can look forward to and develop as a team. Not only that, but I'm going to have an eventual. Sorry. Not only that, but I'm going to have an eventual final scenario where we're going to all go out as a company, and we're going to put everything together, and it's going to be like a final like you would have on any other test. Once we've been able to get through all these steps, we can officially certify them after they've signed off everything in their task book. Then we're just going to continue to learn past that. We're going to continue to grow and get better. We're going to talk about incidents. We're going to talk about fires. And we're even going to look at outside classes or other seminars and things. And if it's something that I haven't attended, I'm going to go attend it with that member so we can all continue to learn and get better. And it's something I want to instill in any of the members that I'm teaching, that you're always in a state of learning and that we're always just working forward and moving on to that next best thing. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, so real quick, I want
to
take a look at
this. That was pretty good. Mulligan, what did you guys notice about him?
He was very organized and had all of his stuff in line and at least laid out for himself, I felt like.
Yeah, he was very organized, and he speaks really well. Like you can pretty much see the excitement in his voice, how he kind of like there's no interruption in his cadence, right? He's talking excited. Like that goes a long way, So have that upbeat, up tempo thing, like okay, and he had a lead for this thing where he started with, hey, I've done this. I'm currently doing this. Certified members, this is what we've done. I understand that qualified relief is something that's required by the department, and this is how I'm going to do it. He got into meeting with the captain, coming up with a timeline, meeting with the members, understanding that everyone has a different starting point. Everybody's has a different mechanical background, right? Seeing where they're at. Then he talked about the task book. So task book is huge. I think that's one of the huge check boxes on the grade sheets, right? Opening up a task book, because that's a department standard. Don't get into like, okay, well, here at Fire Station 37, we do this, and that. No, you're setting a double standard now, right? It's one standard that the department needs you to go over. All these things, these checklists are in that task book, okay? So we're going to open a task book. I like to use DEA. So it's documentation, education, and application. So the documentation is what I consider like all the things that we need to go over before we even step foot in the rig, right? So getting on target solutions, going over all the events, going over all the book stuff as far as the Smith system, the driver's training manual, book 8, all of that stuff we're going to get out of the way first, right? We're going to understand the dynamics and how this apparatus moves and stuff like that. We're going to talk about the logbooks. And then we're going to get into the education behind it. We're going to talk about, the pumping of the water, the hydraulic calculator, the pump theory, and stuff like that. And then we're going to move into the application where we're going to start small. We're going to start with putting the rig in pump. We're going to start with driving on emergency. We're going to start with one line, and then move our way all the way to master streams, and then create real life scenarios where these members are presented with challenges that they may face in actual structure fires, right? And not only that, we're going to move to ESB days. We're going to schedule ESB days to have uninterrupted time of drilling, pumping. We're going to attend together water seminars. We're going to go to 1A, 1B. We're going to do all of that stuff. Now, these are all check marks that you're going to have to hit in order to get the maximum points here. And it's also what we all do, right? It's actually what happens in the field. And then you're going to talk about creating a positive learning environment. You're going to step back and reassess and see if you're communicating, if your instructor style is effective because this member is progressing, right? Or they're not getting it. I like to really make sure and emphasize that everything comes down to time. Some people need a little bit more time. Some people need less time. What I've done is I've used technology to my advantage, right? What we're doing right now on Zoom allows me to meet with people that I don't even know. It allows me to put this on YouTube so people can utilize it, look at it whenever they want. Same thing with our certification process. All the members that were at 37s that promoted, we spent a lot of time on Zoom where, yeah, we don't have the time at work because we are busy. We are running calls, but being busy is not an excuse, right? Let's utilize technology to our advantage. So I'm going to meet with these members on Zoom. If they have any questions, I'm also going to send them home with homework. The homework is going to be book 8. We're going to go over all the things I need to know from book 8. Here's your homework on the hydraulic calculator. So that way we come into our segment, we come into our shift with a game plan of getting this member certified, right? So you're going to wrap all of that up with talking about how having certified members makes them an asset to this department, to their staff. Another huge component is understanding where they're telling you you're assigned, right? So they may say, hey, you're assigned to Fire Station 6. Okay, well, Fire Station 6 may be a rotational engine, right? So utilizing or manipulating your F11 is huge. This member needs a little bit more time. We're going to give them a little bit more time by asking someone from the engine to take runs on the rescue so we can get our hands on pumping a little bit more for that member. So you really have to utilize your manipulation of the F11. That shows your experience because that's what happens, right? And then at the end of all of this, we're gonna get this member certified, and this is a big deal. People that I work with know that when you get certified on the tiller or the engine, I get you like either like a leather passport or a leather keychain. And it just gives you a sense of ownership. It's a huge thing that we're all going to celebrate. We'll go out to get some coffees and talk about the things we went through, and the person that gets certified usually gives a little speech, and it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing, and it's a very important part of your career. So it's important that we acknowledge these special moments, right? It builds a team environment. So that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions when it comes to certifying a member? Anybody?
Anything as far as like having trouble with a member getting certified, or non-rotational medics or anything like that? You got anything on that?
Well, they're not going to give you a non-rotational paramedic because obviously they don't rotate on the fire side as often, and you can still do it. It's just going to be tough, right? But what was your other question?
Member that's been on for a while and doesn't want to get certified or kind of lost interest.
Yeah. So that's going to come down to time, and I noticed you jumped in kind of halfway, but it's going to come down to time, right? And going to incidents together, building that camaraderie, and getting that member on your side, showing them maybe they didn't have a good example, prior to your arrival, but now you're going to kind of revitalize this person, inspire them, create that positive work environment to kind of motivate them, right? And then, like I always talked about, like the tangible items, having someone work towards a goal, like a passport, or we used to have stickers like, hey, a certain sticker means that you're certified on all apparatus. Like those are things that people like to work towards, right? Or having a promotional calendar or whatever it is. So that's some way that you're going to have to get in there and find a way to revitalize this person and get the most out of them. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll go ahead and this kind of goes along with, it could be your personnel question, right? So it's either going to be the rookie is giving a drill, your captain's away, got detailed to a meeting. You're going to be the acting captain, and the rookie's giving a drill, and your senior firefighter is making rude comments, or it's going to be you're the engineer and you're getting a new captain, and there's rumors going on about this captain in the locker room. Okay, it's going to be one of those two scenarios. The more common one is the rookie. So let's go ahead and go through that. You got to have a lead, just like Engineer Mulligan had a lead with everything that he said. You know, hey, as acting captain, I'm entitled to, or I'm responsible for all the duties of the actual captain. So we're going to act accordingly, right? You know, when this member is giving this drill, you know, I've already set the tone and the standard. My crew knows that I don't tolerate a negative working environment. I keep things positive. So this would be very alarming to me. If the senior firefighter is making remarks in the drill, I'm going to tell them to stop. So you actually put yourself in that room. Like, what would you do? Hey, guys, knock it off. Pay attention to what this firefighter is saying, right? If it continues, then you have to stop the action. This was probably my worst response when I was going through my engineer 3-hole, but you got to stop the action immediately, okay? Hey, stop, drill's over. We'll pick it up a little bit later. After everyone kind of breaks up, pull that member, that senior firefighter in the front office. And now this gives you an opportunity to really, you know, have a conversation. You know, hey, what's going on? You're usually not like this. Is everything okay? You know, we can't have this kind of negative work environment. You know, depending on what they say. Oh, you know, yeah, I apologize. You know, it won't happen again. Okay, cool. Hey, just so you know, I'm gonna send you an email that this is what was encountered during this drill. Now everything's documented. You're gonna let your captain know when he comes back. Now, don't create scenarios that aren't there, right? So they didn't say they were making any kind of Dr. HH, discrimination, retaliation, harassment, or hazing. Those are the zero tolerance, right? Those are the straight CTS things that you have to be responsible for. So as long as there's not discrimination, retaliation, harassment, or hazing, okay, I'm going to talk to this member, I'm going to counsel him, I'm going to document it, make an email, send it to him, send it, CC my captain. Captain most likely going to send it to the chief. Everything we do goes up the ladder, right? I'm going to let my superior officer know. The officer is going to let his officer know. Now, if it is one of those things, that's zero tolerance. So that goes straight to CTS. You're going to call the chief immediately. You may have to detail members out because they can't work together, right? So don't take it there unless you absolutely have to, okay? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Typically, as an engineer, you're looking to be the locker room leader. Hey, I'm going to nip this in the bud right now. This isn't going to happen again. When Cap comes back, we're going to reschedule our drill. After that, you're going to meet with that probationary member. You're going to talk to them and really explain to them, hey, thank you for preparing for your drill today. The crew just wasn't ready. We weren't ready all together to receive that drill. Is everything okay with you? Are you okay giving it? Yeah, I'll give it another day whenever Cap comes back. No problem. The next thing we're going to do is we call it the cross. Everything goes up, like we just talked about. Everything goes down, which we're going to talk about right now. So down meaning that we're going to get everybody back together and we're going to reiterate those expectations, right? That way Cap doesn't have to get involved with this when he does come back, or it doesn't happen again, we should say. So, hey, everyone, let's get in the kitchen for a quick meeting. Hey, these are my expectations. We always create a positive work environment, be respectful towards each other, respect everybody's opinions, thoughts, things like that. Those are my expectations going forward. So let's make sure that that's the environment we're in at all times. Then you're going to let your reliefs know. Okay, so the cross goes up, down, left, and right. Left and right means you let your reliefs know, because chances are, if things and issues are going on in your locker room, they're going on in the other shift's locker rooms too. Okay, so it gives them an idea of what to keep an eye out for. It's important to be a locker room leader because you're the liaison between the front office and the locker room. So having a good beat on the pulse of what's going on, knowing that you know you're checking in on your firefighters and you're not just talking about work stuff, but what's going on at home. You know, understanding that people are going through divorce or issues or whatever it is, right? That is your job and your responsibility. But right now, as the acting captain, your responsibility is all those of an acting captain. You're required to report. You're a required reporter. I forget the actual term they use for it, but by sending that email, you documented everything. Everything is covered. Okay, you're not doing it to get anybody in trouble. You're just keeping a timeline on what's happening. Okay, so these are all things that you need to say to get the maximum points, to get all those check boxes, okay? But don't be afraid to say, like, you know, I've been involved in things like this before where I'm not afraid to be the leader that says, hey, knock it off. That's unacceptable. Okay, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone that's able to be vocal and able to keep their firefighters, you know, in line. So it never even gets to the captain. You're the locker room leader, control the locker room, okay? Now, if it's an issue with the captain, like, oh, we're getting this captain from wherever, there's rumors going on, it's the same thing. except for now, you're going to intercept it before it goes any further. You're going to stop the action immediately. Hey, you know what? Let's give this person a fair chance. You know, there's rumors about everybody, but we'll see. We'll work in when we get here. You know, we're going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to stop. We're going to stop any kind of rumors right now. And then you get into everything else. You're going to address them, address your reliefs and stuff like that. It's really the same question. Okay. The important thing is to stop the action. Don't let it go any further. You don't have to create scenarios that aren't there. Like, you don't have to say, you know, we're going to CTS this right away. So don't think that you're not going to get your maximum points. If they want to take it the CTS route, then they'll let you know, or they'll make it very obvious. Now, remember, if there's any Dr. HH, that has to go straight to CTS. Okay. Remember, when you're talking to these people and you discover that there are problems going on in their life, make sure that you can speak to them like a captain. Like, we have peer group assistants where they can reach out to peer support and talk to people. There's numbers where they can have clinician and counseling. So if you know about all of those things, that tells me as a grader that you are or have sat in the captain's seat before and you've thought about this stuff, right? So make sure you know all the things are available to you, right? And it'll really show, it really help your overall score. You guys have any questions with either either personnel scenarios? Don't be afraid to ask. Chances are somebody else has that question.
Yeah, I missed the you said discrimination, retaliation, hazing, and what was the other one?
And harassment. If there's any of those are zero tolerance, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. So that's pretty much it. We covered high rise, pump test, undercarriage, certifying a member, and personnel issues. Okay. If you guys have any questions, like going forward, you know, feel free to hit me up. The only things that you guys are going to have to do that I'm not actually going to cover in the Nobody Fell series is like your tool. You're either going to have, you have to set up a battalion drill, or you have to talk about your maxi force airbags. You have to talk about Pro-S governor, foam, and all the things related to foam. Or commonly you'll get like tell me about the brake system, right? How do the brakes work? So it's either going to be one of those tools. So study for those. Study for all of them. Be ready for them. You don't have to give an in-depth, detailed mini drill as if you're a rookie, but be able to give a mini drill, right? We all should be able to talk about the air brakes to some sense. Sure, we might not know what a valve's called or whatever, but we should have a good understanding of how the brake system works, right? And that's all they're looking for, and the importance of all of your checks and stuff like that. So the only thing I'm not going to go over in this series is like that stuff. If there's anything else, if you guys ever need like some one-on-one time before your interview, I know some people are going like later on in the year. I don't know what bands they're taking right now. You can always reach out to me. We'll find a time where we can, you know, set up an individual Zoom and go over whatever we need to go over. All right. I'm here for you guys. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, message me on Instagram. Yeah, I'm here for you. Work with each other too. You guys meet up in groups and talk to each other. The whole point of this is nobody fails. You guys have already done the hard work. You've done the mentals. You've done the book portion. You've already went out. You pumped, and now this is something that we have to talk about from our experiences. Right? The more people you talk to, the more experiences you can pull from. So it's not just you regurgitating the story you heard from your engineer or from so and so. Okay. All right. Any questions before we end it?
Nope. Thank you.
All right, you guys have a good day. Let me know if you guys need anything. All right.
Thanks, Dumar.
All right.
Thank
You're welcome.
you.
You're welcome.